Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, Concordia's Hanne Dalmut, His Excellency Jorge Quiroga of the plurinational state of Bolivia, and His Excellency Luis Alberto Lacalle Herrera of the Oriental Republic of Uruguay.
We had the dessert.
Yeah, to President Lacalle's point, we're the dessert for the summit, so thank you everyone for sticking around and keeping us in your diet. We appreciate it. As mentioned, my name is Hanne Dalmut. I'm the Senior Director of Partnerships at Concordia, and I'm very pleased to lead this conversation with two esteemed members of our Leadership Council on a topic that's so central to the 2023 Concordia agenda, that of mis and disinformation, and most importantly, not the challenges it poses, but the solutions that are out there through cross-sector collaboration. We are joined, as noted, by His Excellency Jorge Quiroga, who was the president of Bolivia from 2001 to 2002, but holds a number of positions also within the ministry, Congress, and then across different advisory posts. To his left, we have His Excellency Luis Alberto Lacalle, who is president of the Oriental Republic of Uruguay from 1990 to 1995, also with deep experience in different institutional bodies. So that's really what we're going to speak about today, what trust in institutions looks like, and most importantly, how to work towards reigniting it, because we know through pretty much any outlet that you pick up today, this is a challenge that we're facing as a society. So with that, let's start with the challenges. I'll start with President Lacalle. Can you please speak about what you think is, this President Lacalle, his son's not here, it's fine. So President Lacalle, what to you is the biggest challenge in this mis and disinformation debate that you want this audience and everybody who'll be watching this video to work towards solving?
Well, thank you, Hanne. Of course, information is the core of the system, democratic system. No? You get information through the papers, in the old times, television, and now in the net. And of course, that's the input of citizens in order to decide through the vote. And misinformation or fake information or fake news can do a lot of damage because it can falsely form the opinion of the citizens. At the same time, I think that another danger is excess information, because we are waddling, we're swimming, we're sinking into a sea of information that comes from all over the place. And as people are addicted to their little phone and keep moving the thumbs like this and getting information, we are very much hooked to this input into decisions of every kind, but especially political decisions. Ideological, through the anonymous messages, ideological or non-true or slander through the anonymity of information is another danger. So I don't know how to fix it, but we must do something because...
Well, we have 13 minutes. I think we'll get there.
It permeates all the democratic system, and I see it as a danger. As a former politician, very near political activity now, I see how much that can distort the images of reality and through that change, in the bad sense, the opinion of the people.
Thank you. For anyone who didn't catch a session yesterday with Seeker Technologies, which is working on sort of that vetting, that valuation, that certification of information piece, it does sound like one of those ideas that's out there to deal with the anonymity and the excessiveness that President Lacalle is speaking of. President Quiroga, similar question, or if you want to build on any of President Lacalle's points, but to you, the challenge as you're seeing it in Bolivia, but also around the world, domestically. We spoke a bit about this.
Thank you, Hanne. Thank you, University of Miami and Concordia. Thank you, Julio. Congratulations, 2025 is the centennial UM, is the bicentennial of Bolivia, so I'll come to your party if you come to mine, and we can have a joint celebration. Misinformation, trust, I'm not going to delve into my IBM system engineer information days or get into Web3 or blockchain. I'd rather concentrate on information manipulation that destroys trust in institutions, and I'm going to focus on three of them. Trade, financing, and democracy, subject to attacks. We live in misinformation. Meta just took down a troll farm in Cuba and Bolivia, and you notice a sudden drop in the number of people calling my mother bad things on social media. That's how the world works. I'm not complaining. I'm more worried about this. Trade. We're here in the U.S., in the Latin American capital in Miami, at the emblematic university. I would ask the United States to, I don't want to get into the build the wall, tear the wall. Look over the wall. Here we are. Look over the word and over the wall and look at the issues on trade and funding. Trade. We can complain about China. We can bash the Chinese all day long. Huawei, no way, out of my way. The reality is they are open for business. Lacalle in Uruguay and Lasso will never be accused of being communists. They're queued up to do free trade agreements with China because they're buying our commodities. And the U.S. is not open for business because the misinformation led to a point where we lost the sweet spot. Here, for a long time, we had enough Republicans with a few Democrats that would do trade agreements with Mexico, Central American, Andean countries, Chile, and we had enough to do a sweet middle on migration. It seems like now there's a consensus in the U.S. Congress where people do not want our products and do not want our people. Please try to change over that. And if you're not open for business, do not lecture too much on China unless you're willing to return the $1 trillion in U.S. bonds and take Chinese products off of Walmart. Because otherwise, we are going to keep engaging. So show me a proactive trade agenda. Misinformation has led to the point where people here believe that the problem is Mexican manufacturing, Central American manufacturing, and not Amazon and Airbnb. Second quick point on the funding. The institution that works best here in this country is the Federal Reserve. It's an awesome blower and a vacuum cleaner combined. You do the quantitative easing, you blow the dollars down, currencies appreciate, we suffer the turmoil. Now you're jacking up interest rates, and Mr. Powell is sucking up all the dollars, everybody depreciating, and here we are shaking. We need, right now, dollars. There was a long discussion on the Inter-American Development Bank, whether it should be run by American, Latin American, forget that. Show me the money. Show me the capital increase of the IDB to furnish dollars for development, to fund the nearshoring and all those great things we're doing. And while we're at it, here in Miami, I would say the following. Move the IDB, Inter-American Development Bank headquarters, from Washington to Miami, because this is the development capital of the Americas. We'll move it, I'll build the bricks. We'll do it here, we'll build it. Imagine, the ministers don't have to go to Washington. When it's summertime there, you've got to fly to Washington, you've got to take a coat, it's cold. Just make it in Miami, and it'll do wonders, for development. The last point on democracy and the misinformation or manipulation. Latin America is going through a tough time right now. They would have you believe there's a left-wing wave. Not true, there's a change wave. The last 18 elections since Duque got sworn in Colombia, 2018, to Lula in Brazil recently, have been change elections. There was a predominancy of center-right, people that left office, it was change. Whoever was in the opposition came into government. We'll see how Argentina, Mexico, Peru play up next. Keep your eyes out for a return of more democratic-minded leaders. The fight in Latin America is not left against right. It's democracy against autocracy. And it is very sad to see that the dictatorships in Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua are not strongly condemned, like Lacalle does in forums, by democratic governments from the G4. Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, Brazil, they're democratic governments, but they look the other way, while the Kim Jong-un of the Caribbean, Ortega, and his wife Rosario, nepotism galore, kick out my friends, they take out their passports and they expel them from Nicaragua, where Maduro destroys Venezuela. It is, oh no, he's a leftist, I can't criticize him. Learn from Boric, young president of Chile. I have disagreed with him on a lot of things, but he takes a stand, like Lacalle, criticizing Nicaragua and the dictatorship. That is what we would ask, and I would close, since we're in the US, with a couple things on this. It's heart-wrenching to see and they go to Colombia, they go to Peru, they go to Chile, and some of them come here, and we see Republican governors taking those Venezuelans and shipping them off to Washington. Mercy, please, do not use Venezuelan migrants as political pawns. And while we're at it, the last piece of advice, there's a man very influential with the big megaphone, Mr. Bernie Sanders, probably the most influential senator. I know he's got youthful crushes. I understand. I used to have them too. I wanted to be a soccer player. When I was a teen, I wanted to dance with Susana Jimenez. I've gotten over it.
You still mountain climb.
And I understand Mr. Sanders has those crushes with Castro and Ortega. Imagine the power he would have if he, like Boric in Chile, said, Ortega's a dictator. Look what he's doing. Because Rick Scott does it, Rubio does it, Menendez does it, Debbie Wasserman Schultz did it. But Mr. Sanders, I mean, let's hear it. It would have great reverberations. This is not about left against right. It's democracy and against autocracy. Let's all take a stand, including in the place where it all started. Cuba, that's where it started. The people, Valdez, Raúl Castro, they have been governing that country longer than I've been alive. Governing is a misnomer. They've been destroying that country longer than I've been alive. They're older than my father. My father is healthy, 90 years old. He swims, he walks, but he doesn't have a driver's license anymore. These people have the license to drive into the ground Cuba, Venezuela, Nicaragua, and destroy democracy. Please take a stand and remove that license.
We should go on with Quiroga, I think. Let's vote for Quiroga.
Quiroga 2024.
No, you go on, come on. No. I carry his luggage.
Yeah.
No, this is, I'll let you a little secret. He's got a long family history of Uruguayan politics. He was president. The son is current president. Violeta, the granddaughter, is the next president. I have the rights for her already. And if you ever want to watch the best karaoke in the world, watch the son of the Cela Cumbre singing Patria y Vida to Díaz-Canel. It's quite a good YouTube video.
Things to build into our 2024 agenda. Karaoke.
You won't come back. Stay.
I do want to speak a bit about your family dynasty, President Lacalle. I'm fascinated about the conversations you have with your family and think through not only the position that your son is in, but it sounds like you have a very kind of aspirational family in general, very informed. So how are you working across generations? How are you bringing your knowledge from your presidency in 1990 to 1995 into a 2023 discourse?
Hanne, that history time can be measured normally by hours, days, weeks, and years, but the other way of measuring it is by the changes that appear in a certain period. I was president 40 years ago, but to give you the sense of change, there was no internet, there were no cellular phones. The only great invention was the fax, and we were looking at the telephone like this. So imagine, China wasn't that important. Services were not one of the main subjects of trade between the nations. So that's the thing I feel. I belong to another time of history. So when relationship with the young people, which is mainly what I do in my party, give chats to young people, I only speak about the principles that haven't changed. But on the rest of reality, I'm out of this world because they belong to a new world in the real sense. So principles, which must be few but strong, are the same. The circumstances, the environment, the world in which they are acting politically is completely different. It's the other world.
Apples to oranges in some instances. We only have a few minutes left, so I want to take this moment, especially taking off your president's hats, which I understand could be difficult to do, and putting on your Concordia Leadership Council hats. Thinking to the forward-looking conversations that we'll be having this year linked to these topics, I'm curious what you would advise in terms of who should be at the table, how to tackle this topic in the best way, and again, making sure that we're thinking about solutions-oriented. So knowing that at the annual summit, we'll have massive programming in September in New York, we'll have massive programming on this topic, knowing it's part of our Europe summit in Madrid, who are you paying attention to when you're thinking about mis and disinformation? Where would it be a misstep for our organization that's committed to cross-sector collaboration?
I think that the chemistry of Concordia is very wise, but I would very much like to have more U.S. officials.
Okay.
Because from our side, we have 3 or 4 presidents that come. But as we had this trade representative, she was very wise in her words, more movers and shakers of the U.S. government system, of both sides of the aisle. But that would be very important for our point of view. Very egoistical, but very real.
But I think it touches on the trade point that President Quiroga was speaking to.
Yeah, I think trade, funding, democracy, and the line democracy is suggestion, operational suggestion. Next year, the forum. I want to see a event with women in democracy, with our fearless leader, Laura Chinchilla, we've had a few great female leaders, and Laura is no one's daughter, no one's widow. I mean, in the sense, we all come from some parents, our husband, but she earned her own spot there on her own, and she is something else. She's the only Latin American in the Olympics. She's a great leader. Bring women and democracy. I want to see Rosa Maria Payá and the admirable fight she does in Cuba. I want to see in Nicaragua, Cristiana Chamorro, Berta Valle, the wives that advocated for those people. And invite Maria Corina Machado. She's a heck of an engineer in Venezuela. They will pick their candidate in the primaries. We'll see how Argentina, Peru plays out, and next year Venezuela. But I have the feeling that in Venezuelan politics, the voters will decide there, or the opposition will decide. Pero le atina el que está con María Corina, or maybe ha llegado la hora de Machado, maybe. We'll see. But she's a heck of a woman. So women and democracy, it would be a heck of a panel. Maybe María Corina won't be allowed to travel. I don't know about Rosa Maria Payá, but bring him here. And bring female political leaders from the U.S. Bring Debbie Wasserman Schultz, bring María Elvira Salazar, the awesome Donna Shalala. And if you do that forum, I'll be sitting there and clapping up a storm.
Bravo, muy bien. We will clap to you.
I do think it's interesting that with this session really being about mis and disinformation and its impact on trust in institutions, the prescription is more institutional representation as opposed to less. It's bringing more to the table, it's being more active. But I love the names that you recommended. I hope everyone watches the video in slow repeat and finds new voices to follow on their own Instagrams or Twitters and social media handles so that we can all be following these champions of democracy as well. So with that, I want to thank our esteemed Leadership Council members for this conversation, for their experiences and their dedication and commitment to furthering democratic ideals. And I believe that is the conclusion of this session. I have a few closing remarks about Concordia, but I think we should all thank our Leadership Council members. Thank you so much.